Oh, yeah, can I go ahead, sir?
Yes, no.
Okay. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My group and I will be doing chapter 9, Being in Communities. Our members would be Ms. Bandini Dwarika, Alison, Virgilal, and myself, Daniel Oxon. I'll be starting us off this afternoon. So I'll be talking about the importance of communities. Before we start, I'll tell you a bit of a story that I read from our chapter. So the story says Denise is at home, not feeling well. She's sorry to have missed the committee meeting this morning. The phone rings and Jason is on the line. He has Stacy and Carl in his room and they are worried because Denise did not come to the meeting. Jason. Denise, it's Jason and I'm here with Stacy and Carl. Our committee was really worried when you didn't show up this morning. Dean Jacobs asked if anyone knew if you were okay, since you were always right there. You sound terrible. Are you okay? Denise, clearing her throat. Thanks, Jason. It feels really good to know you are noticed. I have a killer cold. It hit me late last night. Sorry I didn't call so you wouldn't worry. Jason. That's okay, Denise. Hope you feel better. Stacy says she'll drop some resumes of the possible commencement speakers by your house tonight because we are all supposed to be ready to vote on them as a recommendation to the senior class council for Friday. Oh, says to ask if you need anything, she can bring it when she comes by. This committee appears to be a healthy community. Denise's absence was noticed by committee members and by the advisor. They cared enough to check on her and to pick up on copies of materials. Denise knows from this encounter that she matters. Community is a compelling feeling, whether on a smaller personal level or on a macro or national level. Remember all the ways in which communities will pull together in times of crises? The families who opened their homes to strangers after the 2005 hurricanes, the colleges that took in displaced students after Hurricane Katrina, and how America united following the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001. So from the story, did anyone take anything away when asking questions about it? Going once, going twice. Yeah, we'll continue then. So to start us off, I'd like to talk about the role of community in leadership. So community is essential to leadership. It's not just about managing people, it's about building relationships and fostering a sense of belonging. Leaders who understand the value of community actively develop the skills needed to sustain it. When people feel like they belong, they're more likely to trust each other, work together, and grow. This is a core aspect of what we call relational leadership. So that everyone understand that, so they want to ask any questions about it? Okay, I'll be moving on then. All right, so on to number two, imperfect but growing communities. So no community is perfect, just as no person is perfect, no community is perfect. And that's okay. What is important is that communities strive for improvement. Whether it's a team at work or a group of neighbors, communities that aim to grow together become supportive environments where both individuals and the group as a whole can thrive. It's a commitment to getting better despite imperfections that makes a community truly strong. So now let's hurry along to number three. So now we're going to reflect on identity and purpose. So one of the most important things communities do is reflect on who they are and what they stand for. Communities that regularly ask themselves, who are we and what matters to us, are the ones that stay focused and united. These questions help the group to maintain a shared purpose and identity, which is critical to their success. So I want everyone here to ask yourself, who am I and what matters to me? Can you answer that question? If not, that's something everyone here should be doing. It's a very important question to ask yourself because it helps in you developing and growing as a person. Now, moving on to number four. So, community building as a leadership skill. So, building and rebuilding communities isn't just another task for a leader. It's one of the most important skills they can have. As John Gardner said, the ability to create community is one of the highest and most essential leadership skills. Without this ability, leaders can't foster the collaboration and trust needed for success. And one of the most important things to leaders is the ability to build communities where trust and collaboration, because no leader can do everything on his own. They need members of the community, of their teams, who can step out on their own and do things that would benefit the community as a whole. So that's why it's important to be able to build a community. Now, if anyone has any questions at this point, anything they want to point out? Going once, going twice. Okay, let's move along then. Now, number 5, treating community as a discipline. So, community building is not something we do instinctively. Like any other discipline, whether it is biology or history, it requires study, practice, and continuous learning. Leaders need to treat it as a skill that can be honed over time. By doing this, they can create environments where relationships thrive and people work together more effectively. So, yes, so you should treat community as a discipline. Any questions? Anything at all? So point 6, creating healthy community environments. So, in truly effective communities, every member feels like they matter. People are committed not only to their own success, but to the success of the entire group. When you feel like you belong and your contributions are valued, you're more likely to engage and contribute meaningfully. This sense of ownership is what leads to stronger collaboration and shared leadership. Does anyone here, well, would anyone here want to contribute to a group where they feel like they're undermined or, or censored? No. So that's why it's important to build and create healthy community environments where everyone feel like they have a role to play and that they matter in the grand scheme of the team. Okay, now on to number 7. So the importance of emotional and relational support. So effective communities are built on trust, openness, and emotional support. In a healthy community, people feel safe sharing their thoughts and emotions without fear of judgment. This emotional safety allows for deeper connections and stronger collaboration. It's not just about getting the job done, it's about creating an environment where people feel accepted and valued. That's what everyone here wants. Everyone wants to be in a community where they're accepted. Is that right for everyone here? You want to be in a community where you feel accepted? You can raise your hand if you show, to show approval or willingness. Yeah. Okay, thank you. And so now we move on to number 8, the contrast between effective and ineffective groups. So think back to a group where you felt connected and engaged. Chances are you felt like you were part of something bigger, and that made your experience enjoyable. Now, compare that to a group where there was little sense of connection. Sure, you might have achieved the goals at the end of the day, but it didn't feel as meaningful. This contrast shows how important community is for creating an environment where people want to be a part of. So let's still wrap everything up. There's a video I found that I found really interesting, and I just showed it to you. It's a bit on the lengthy side, but hopefully you can bear it with me.
Hello, thank you for chiming into this TR talk. We are together, we are a PEG row and in Chicago, I PEG. My name is Francisca Dekker in the Netherlands. And we are both global leaders with TR International, Women's Leadership Development Company. And we like every week to share an unscripted conversation with you about a topic that is on the top of our interest and on the top of our mind. And today we wanted to have an open conversation about community, and especially about community and leadership, as community is a very important window that we use inside of the true leadership model that we have, the TR true leadership model. So therefore, we obviously find it important, but Let's elaborate a little bit about why do we find community
Yeah.
important, Peg? What would you like to say about that?
Yeah, so if we think in terms of just even our basic definition of community from a Tierra perspective, it's all really about building relationships and building authentic relationships, and then using our ability to do that to increase our influence. And one of the things that we know as leaders is that influence is particularly important. And so when we think of in terms of community, we're thinking about how do we expand our vision? How do we engage other people in our vision, share our vision, bring them along, engage them in a way that they want to be part of that, which is essential for influence. So community is really a building block to having effective influence in any endeavor that you have, whether it's your formal organization or other ways that you operate within your life.
Yeah, indeed. So there are many different types of communities. I really love to hear you frame what how we define community, because in the beginning, when I first joined with Tiara, and community was one of the aspects or where I had second thoughts about it. I mean, my mind was immediately going into associations with community, where I was thinking like, do I really need community?
Yeah.
And why would I do that? Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
interesting. I didn't know that. That's great to understand.
yeah,
We have different relationships to community,
yeah.
and we have lots of different communities. One of the things I appreciate about how we approach community is that we all have these different communities within our lives,
Hmm.
and over time, some of them have been with us for ages. I mean, I have colleagues and friends who have friends from, from elementary school that are still part of their communities. I, on the other hand, my dad was in the Navy. We moved every 2 years. I don't have anyone that I can claim as a friend that goes back that far because I was, 5 years old and we moved when I was seven. I was 7 years old when we moved when I was nine. So those were not long lasting communities. And yet, if you are in the same neighborhood, you go to the same schools, you've been with those friends for years, those communities are some of your longest lasting communities. And then you build others along the way.
You do. It's changing over
Yes,
time,
yes,
right? Yes, yeah.
absolutely.
Do you think, Peg, as we are invested especially in women's leadership
Hmm.
development, and do you think that working in communities and attending to communities is something typical for women, or maybe typical feminine? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, I think men and women both engage in community, but I do think that there's a way women engage in community, not to overly generalize, but I think it's not uncommon to see women fostering community in a little bit different way than men do. So I looked at my husband, and he has a community of guys that he has worked with professionally, and they play golf together. That's a clear
Hmm.
community for Chuck, and he relies on them. But it's a different kind of community than the communities I have of colleagues and friends, where I feel like we lean into each other a little bit differently. We count on one another. We are appreciative of having that relationship. We foster and build those relationships. And I think in organizations, we often see that, women can, in many cases, be the ones who are more likely to be collaborative, to choose to bring others in, to engage others in a project, and create more of a community around getting that done.
Mm. Yeah. So again, in fact, a matter of framing,
Yeah,
right? How define
yeah,
community?
yeah.
What is the meaning? What do you make it mean?
Hmm.
And that can be different for different people. It can be different for men and women, and so
Yes,
forth. But it is obvious that we do need each other in
right,
producing results and creating the influence that we want
right.
and need for our teams and
Hmm. Hmm.
organizations. Yeah. Since there is a need to build community,
Yes.
what might get in the way of building community? What would you think? What may make it difficult?
That's a great question. And I think it's one of the ones that we've, sorry, I feel like I'm on the verge of sneezing. It's, I think, something that we've been confronted with in the last year, not to date this particular talk, but we're just coming out of the extreme efforts of the pandemic, where people were locked down and not leaving to go to work and that sort of thing. And I think many people struggled with maintaining and keeping those communities during that time, when the natural ways that their communities got together were really interrupted and not able to do that. And so they either had to find alternatives like virtual ways of connecting, or perhaps some of those communities may have taken on less importance for that period of time. So I do think sometimes geography can be an obstacle, although we love having the virtual opportunity to connect with people.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes over time we can outgrow relationships and outgrow where we each are. And some of those communities over time may just, from lack of attention, might just kind of fade into the woodwork. Doesn't mean that we don't maintain some of those relationships, but they might not be in the form of that community.
Yeah, 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 right. Yeah. In addition to that, Peg, there may be concerns of time also, that it takes a lot of time to build community and to entertain community. Sometimes also it may be energy draining, so it's not supported. We like to build community in the line of thinking because it will be helpful.
Yes.
But not all communities are helpful all the time.
Right. Yes.
So yeah, that can be impeding.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of folks, that's where some of that outlived community is. Like, you realize that you had a strong connection to a community at one point, and then you may have you may have grown in different directions, and that community no longer feels like it has as much of a direct impact on you, or you a direct impact on them. So
yeah,
I do think over time it makes sense for us to step back and take a look at, who are our communities and how are we operating inside of those. We
yeah,
sometimes talk about the equal importance of giving and receiving, and we know that women bias a lot towards the giving side of it and tend not to feel like they should receive as much, which of course is silly, because we all like to give, and receiving is part of that. But I think it helps to step back and really assess. And are there communities that, maybe you want to increase your energy towards, and you want to increase your activity with? And there may be communities where this might be a time to step back a little bit and, assess and see, is this still a place where I can make a valuable contribution, and that's making a valuable contribution to me?
yes, indeed. This is exactly why community is part of the curriculum.
Right.
That in our curriculum, we go beyond the theoretical understanding, and we go right into the practical application. How does it look for you now? And where can you sort of upgrade your set of communities that you are entertaining at the moment? Yeah. In addition to that content that we offer, what else do we offer as TRA leadership in terms of community? How can you talk to us a little bit about them?
Well, we have the Tiara Resource Circle, which is our global community of women who come together, and there are various levels that people can participate in. But at the highest level of participation, the focus really is on community. And so to sustain that, we do, a monthly true leadership session where we
All right,
take
so okay, everyone, I'll be ending off the video here. Everything I wanted to see has already passed on, Gwen. So we're moving on to the next slide now.
That is an opportunity for our community to gather together and really.
Right, and there's also another video I'd like you to see, but it's quite long. So I just have a link in case anyone's curious to see it. You can reach out to me while I'm at class today. And I'll be handing over to my group member to continue this presentation, Ms. Varika.
Good night, everyone. Elements of community. Next slide. Communities are the mirrors in which we see our true selves. Next slide. What is a community? A community is defined as a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. such as neighborhoods, or by shared characteristic like culture, religion, or hobbies. Does anyone want to give an example of a community? Going once, going twice. Okay, so two examples of a community is a religious community and a sport community. A community is not just a place where interactions occur, but also an attitude of connections and commitment that will keep relationship and purposes. For example, in time of need such as natural disasters or an emergency, the members of a community support one another. Communities are where we exhibit the values to which we are committed. What makes a community? A community is more than just a place. It embodies an attitude of commitment and connections that builds bonds and share a common purpose. A community is more than just a place. It embodies an attitude and commitment that helps to build bonds and share a common purpose. Sharing that community commitment is the basic nature of rational leadership. Leadership in a community involves watching out for one another's needs and fostering an atmosphere of support where people feel appreciated. Leadership is not about being in charge, but about taking care of those in your charge. Leadership in a community involves watching out for one another's needs and fostering an atmosphere of support where people feel appreciated. For example, leadership is seen in a school principal who transforms a struggling school into a thriving environment. What is the importance of a community? According to Martin Buber, community is essential for a fulfilling life. Community is that place where the person you least want to live with always lives, and when that person moves away, someone else arises to take his or her place. Next slide, please. A true community cannot exist without diversity. Do you all agree with that? What do you think would happen if all community members saw things the same way, had the same skills, and had the same life experiences? Anyone has any ideas? Feel free to raise your hand and answer. Okay.
That it wouldn't have any room for how to say it, knowledge for learning.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, so if community members saw the same things and their ability to be resilient and face challenges would be limited. It means there will be a lack of diversity, limited exposure to different ideas and skills, and less engagement within the community. And that can diminish personal connections and members become less motivated. Many members of communities find ways to meet and think together. As human beings, we all want meaningful connection to others. Traditional views suggest communities require face-to-face interaction. Many members find ways to meet and think together. Society meetings and electronic networks like chat room blogs have enabled the development of community connections that helps to connect persons globally, which would enhance the leadership and foster a sense of belonging. Next slide, please. How can communities best function to fully engage community members? Point 1. Meaningful participation in that community may be encouraged or discouraged depending on the rules, customs, expectations, norms, and other institutions. A true community is not a collection of people who think the same way, but people with differing minds and complementary natures. Next point is Martin Buber, 1958, reminds us that this does not mean accepting views of others just to create a false peace. Rather, it means keeping in mind the commitment to greater values. In 1958, Martin Buber says that in our life together, some form of community is what makes life worth living. Being in a part of a community prompts self examination. He also highlights how we embody the value we claim to hold. Next slide, please. Being in a community requires an awareness of reciprocal processes. Point one, both the individual and the community must choose to participate in and accept each other in the greater community. Point two, according to Harvard sociologist Charles Wiley, there are present parallel demands for distributive justice and contributive justice in any society, be it a work group, classroom, neighborhood, or volunteer organization. Community members must practice contributive justice, upholding obligations and commitment to share purposes, while also ensuring distributive justice that involves caring for all members and ensuring inclusivity. Some members may be removed from communities because they do not uphold shared responsibilities and values, highlighting the importance of both. Take, for example, a neighborhood watch program. In a program like this, community members come together to enhance the safety of their neighborhood by looking out for one another. Next slide. Serial reciprocity in communities. Definition of serial reciprocity. A notion of social and philanthropy that describes how people indirectly repays their acts of kindness. Example of this interaction is Chris assists Mary in moving her fridge. Mary then repays that kindness, not necessarily by helping Chris, but she helps Diana to put up flyers. Diana then helps by picking up the trash, continuing the cycle of support. This creates a sense of community and responsibility among each other, fostering a welcoming atmosphere and is essential for a thriving community. Next slide. Arun Gandhi in 1998 reflects on his grandfather's lesson on violence. He emphasizes the importance of work, conscience, knowledge, morality, and responsibility. In human life, he emphasizes the need for human connections and responsibility in our community. Next slide. To conclude and sum up the points I've brought forward today, I included a video.
The word community might bring to mind a variety of thoughts and images. Webster's dictionary defines community as a unified body of individuals with common interests, a common characteristic, or living in a common location. Reflecting on this definition might make you think that you belong to a number of different communities, which is probably correct. A community could be characterized by age group, ethnicity, gender, religion, location, or profession. As a high schooler, you belong to a community of students. You might also identify yourself as belonging to a certain racial community. If you attend a church, temple, or mosque, then you are part of a religious community. Living in a certain neighborhood or area makes you a member of a geographical community. You see, communities are sometimes overlapping, and one person can belong to a vast number of different communities all at once. You might be a member of some communities by default, while others you joined by choice. For example, you are a teenager and therefore are a member of the teen community whether you like it or not. You might also be a member of a soccer community because you enjoy and choose to participate in the sport of soccer. Sometimes other factors in our lives influence us to join certain communities as well. for example, a parent, friend, medical condition, or event. Regardless of the community you are a part of or the reason you joined, every community has resources that help to fulfill its needs. These resources are known as community assets. Community assets include positive activities, facilities, and services that help to keep its members healthy. Some examples of community assets might be a meditation garden, fitness center, library, hospital, park, or playground. Which community assets are available to you in your area? It is obviously beneficial to have a large variety of assets in your community. Just as important as the number of assets, however, is how they work together to serve the community. Collaboration amongst people and the efficient use of the resources of a community can maximize the benefits to its members. How does your community work together to serve its people?
I now hand over to my Alison.
Good afternoon, everyone. We've now reached the part of development of communities. Communities happen intentionally. They are not formed instantly. Next slide, please. According to Scott Peck of 1987, he identified 4 stages of developing true authentic community. First being the pseudo community. This is the superficial sense of getting along where interactions seem harmonious but lacks depth. A key feature of pseudo community is conflict avoidance. In pseudo community, people may suppress their true feelings or avoid difficult conversations to maintain a false sense of peace. However, true community involves acknowledging and working through disagreement. Conflict isn't avoided, but it is instead seen as a necessary part of building genuine relationships and creating solutions. Authentic communities strive by addressing differences and resolving conflict rather than pretending they don't exist. An example of this: in a workplace, a team might seem to be working well together with polite and friendly exchanges. However, beneath the surface, there might be frustration about how decisions are being made or unequal workload distribution. Rather than discussing these issues, team members stay silent to avoid confrontation. This creates an illusion of harmony, but tension continues to build. A true community would encourage open dialogue, allowing the team to address concerns, resolve conflict, and find solutions that benefit everyone. The second stage is chaos. This stage is characterized by conflicting perspectives where different members or factions of the group assert their viewpoint, leading to confusion and disagreement. The group is no longer avoiding conflict but is struggling to navigate through it. A key challenge of this. The primary risk in this stage is that some members may feel overwhelmed by the chaos and conflict, leading them to withdraw or give up altogether without proper management. The group becomes fragmented or ineffective. In an attempt to control the chaos, the group may create structures or systems to manage differences of opinion. This can include setting up formal rules, processes, or decision-making mechanisms. For example, a committee might implement a voting system to settle disputes, or a residence hall might introduce new policies to regulate the use of shared spaces. While organizations can restore order, it often does not address the underlying source of conflict. The rules and structures may keep things functioning on the surface, but unresolved tension may continue to fester beneath, risking future disruptions. The third stage we have is emptiness. This stage is about group members letting go of the assumptions, stereotypes, and emotional or psychological barriers that prevent authentic communication. It requires individuals to be vulnerable and open, acknowledging that their preconceived notions may be blocking real understanding. The essence of emptiness is creating space for genuine communication. It involves recognizing and discarding the beliefs and attitude that hinder the ability to truly listen to others. By doing this, group members can engage in deeper, more meaningful interaction that promote mutual respect and problem solving. An example of this would be, imagine a group made up of both freshmen and seniors at a university. The freshmen may assume that the seniors are self-interested and indifferent to their needs, while the seniors might believe the freshmen are naive and over-idealistic. These stereotypes prevent the two groups from understanding each other's perspective. In the emptiness stage, both groups would work to let go of these assumptions. The freshmen would stop seeing the seniors as only self-serving, while the seniors would recognize that the freshmen may bring fresh and valuable ideas. As these barriers are dropped, the group can have open, honest conversation where they listen to each other's concern and ideas without judging. The process of letting go to more effective communication as participants stop projecting their bias and begin to appreciate the diversity of thought within the group. This opens the door to collaboration where each person's contributions are respected, ultimately fostering a stronger and more cohesive community. The fourth stage, authentic community. At this stage, the group has moved beyond superficial harmony and chaos. Conflicts are resolved through open, honest dialogue and genuine understanding. Members no longer avoid disagreement but embrace them as a necessary part of group and decision making. Real community does not shy away from disagreement or differences of opinion. Instead, it leverages those differences to foster deeper understanding and better outcomes. In an authentic community, members listen to each other and collaborate, knowing that constructive conflict can lead to creative solutions and stronger relationships. The ultimate group goal of this stage is to transform a collection of individuals, each with their own perspectives and agenda, eyes, into a unified group that shares a common purpose, we. By addressing disagreements openly and working through them, the group creates a collective identity where everyone feels valued and heard. An example of this, consider a project team in a workplace tasked with developing a new product. Initially, the team members may have differing ideas about the project's direction. Some prioritize innovation while others emphasize cost efficiency. This disagreement can lead to tension, but rather than avoiding the conflict, the team embraces it. They hold regular open discussions where each member's viewpoint is acknowledged and explored. Through these conversations, the team realizes that both innovation and cost efficiency are essential to the project's success. They create a plan that integrates both perspectives, achieving a better outcome than if they had ignored or suppressed the differences. The team moves away from being a group of individuals with separate interests to a cohesive unit with a shared vision. Each member feels their contribution mattered and the group reaches a solution that satisfies everyone concerned. In an authentic community, conflict and differing opinions become opportunities for growth. The group doesn't aim for superficial agreement, but strives for genuine consensus where each person feels invested in the outcome. By turning "I's" into "we", the group builds stronger bonds and create lasting, meaningful collaboration. Next slide, please. We now have a short video just explaining what I just explained here with the 4 stages.
I'm going to introduce to you a tool that we use in Parakaleo that helps us normalize what we experience and walk through in community. And this comes from an article that Scott Peck wrote where he describes the 4 stages groups routinely go through in their process of becoming and maintaining community. In Parakaleo, I get to lean into this and see myself in the journey and recognize that the gospel is at the center of it all, holding this all together. So as I share, I invite you to think of a community, maybe a church plant, or workplace that you're currently finding yourself in. And we all start out in community and pseudo community, and pseudo sounds fake, and yet it's really just the beginning. It's like dating. We're putting our best face forward and we're trying to gather information. We're kind of avoiding disagreements and we want to see what this group is going to be like. It can be happy and hopeful, or for some it can feel anxious and skeptical. But inevitably, in the midst of this, of that trying to gloss over and suppress the differences, they end up coming to the surface anyway. And as much as we want to avoid it, we all enter chaos. Every group goes through this next stage of chaos where conflict arises and there's competing ideas of what this group is going to be like, what our expectations are for how we're going to move forward. And we want a way out of chaos. It's discouraging and frustrating and disappointing. And some just exit the group and go back into pseudo community just to find the way out of chaos, because we're longing to shut that chaos down. And what we're really longing for is that fullness of community, that last stage that Scott describes. And it's that picture of true community, of a community or a spot where there's teamwork, where it's okay to be vulnerable, where forgiveness and kindness exist. Where grace is given and received. And it's not surprising that we long for this, because we were made for this kind of community. It's a creation longing in our heart. And yet, how is that possible here in the now and the not yet? Is there a bridge between chaos and community? Well, that's the 3rd stage, that stage of emptying. Because in the midst of the pain and struggle of chaos, there's an invitation to me to empty of myself. And as a group, we're invited to empty ourselves of the expectations and misconceptions and judgments that contributed so much to chaos. I get to turn to the true rescuer with all those feelings that were stirred up in chaos and start recognizing that I can't fix this community, but releasing it back to Jesus. Because at the middle of it all is the gospel, like we described. And it reminds me that I have a divided heart, and so does everyone else on this journey. And that in the midst of all 4 stages, God is writing his redemption story. So no matter what stage you might find yourself in, the goal is the gospel, leaning in to see it lived out in your community and in mine.
Next slide, please. All right. Communities that go through this evolutionary process and get to the point where they are truly functioning as a community frequently make the mistake of failing to understand that community building is a process rather than a final goal. Next slide, please. The Goddescons 1991. How do we apply community building to leaders? Next slide, please. The Goddescon 1991 proposed that individual practice these 7 community building principles: being committed, be mindful, be unconditionally accepting, be concerned for both self and others, be understanding, be ethical, be peaceful. To be committed to others is essential for building a strong community. Example, in a student group working on a community service project, each member must be fully committed to the group's mission and goal. Even when challenges arise, such as conflicting schedules or setbacks in the project, members stay dedicated to complete the task because they understand that their collective success depends on everyone's involvement. Being mindful, this focus on the process, not just the outcome. Mindfulness means being aware of your actions and the group dynamics rather than rushing towards a goal. Another example, in a workplace team, rather than focusing solely on finishing a project by the deadline, the leader ensures that team members are collaborating effectively and communicating openly. They hold regular check-ins to assess not just progress, but how well the team is working together. By being mindful of the process, the team can address issues early on and work more smoothly. Being unconditionally accepting. Accept people as they are without trying to change or control them. Example, in a classroom discussion, one student may hold differing views on a controversial topic. Instead of trying to change each other's minds, the student practice unconditional acceptance by listening to each perspective without judgment. They respect each other's right to hold different opinions, fostering a more open and inclusive environment. Be concerned for both self and others. Engage in a dialogue and be open to ideas from others, balancing concern for your own needs without consideration from the group. In a example, in a community board meeting, a member might have a strong opinion about where to allocate funds. However, instead of pushing their own agenda, they listen to the concerns of others and engage in a dialogue to find a compromise that benefits both the community needs and their own priorities. Be understanding. Being understanding is striving to fully understand others' perspective and experiences. Example, in a multicultural workplace, team members come from different cultural backgrounds. By asking questions, actively listening, and showing genuine interest in learning about each other's experience, they develop a deeper understanding. This understanding helps the team work more harmoniously and appreciate the diverse perspective each member brings. Be ethical. Being ethical, act with moral integrity, making decisions that are not just practical, but also morally right. An example of this, a non-profit organization faces a dilemma of accepting a large donation from a company with a questionable ethical background. Rather than prioritizing the financial gain, the organization chooses to act ethically by declining the donation, as it would conflict with their core values of integrity and social responsibility. Be peaceful. Avoid violence, deceit, and manipulation, promoting harmony within the group. Example of this, during a heated debate in a town hall meeting, one participant feels the urge to use strong, aggressive language to make their viewpoint. However, instead of resorting to hostility, they choose to express their thoughts calmly and peacefully, fostering an environment where disagreement can be handled respectfully without escalating into personal attack. If each participant has the mental model of this organization, of their organizations as a community and practice community building skills, the group will be enriched. Next slide, please. Relational leadership. Relational leadership focuses on building strong relations within a team or organization. Successful leaders understand the importance of creating a sense of community and collaborating among team members. Next slide. Some elements of relational leadership are inclusive, empowering, ethical, purposeful, process-oriented. Inclusive is where the leaders ensure that everyone in the group feels valued and heard. For example, a manager encourages quieter team members to share their opinions in meetings, making sure that all voices are part of the decision-making process. Empowering. This is where leaders provide opportunities for others to grow and take on responsibilities. Example, a leader mentors a junior employee to take up a leadership role in a new project, boosting their confidence and skills. Ethical. This is where leaders act with integrity and fairness in their decisions and actions. A leader ensures transparent communication about company policies and treat all team members fairly, fostering trust within the group. Purposeful. This is where leaders have a clear vision and shared goals that guide the team's effort. Example of this would be a leader organizing regular meetings to remind the team of the company's mission, aligning their task with the organization's long-term goals. Process oriented. This is where leaders focus on how things are done, paying attention to the methods and teamwork, not just the end results. Example of this would be a leader encouraging feedback from its team members after a project to reflect on the process, helping improve future collaboration. By applying these principles, leaders can build communities that encourage learning, personal growth, and ethical decision making. This results in a cohesive, high functioning team that thrives on collaboration and mutual respect. Next slide. I now hand you over to Mr. Oxley.
Hi, good night, everyone. And just to conclude our presentation tonight, I just want to say that community is not just a concept, but a crucial foundation for relational leadership. This chapter that we spoke on today has shown that communities, even though imperfect, provide space for individuals and groups to grow together. By actively engaging in the process of building and nurturing these communities, leaders can create supportive environments that foster trust, collaboration, and shared leadership. I just want to say thank you to all who sat through our presentation this afternoon. Thank you for your time today. I hope everyone has a great night. I can go ahead and stop sharing, sir.
Yes.